Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to start a new segment of the show. Every quarter we have our superintendents come in to talk about the academic programs in the Milford Public Schools. And it was brought to my attention that we've got some hardworking kids who are student athletes, and we never talk about the athletic achievements. So we'll start with an introduction.
Peter Boucher, second year Director of Athletics for the Milford Public Schools, and I appreciate the offer to be here tonight. It's great.
I look forward to having you and the coaches on every quarter to talk about it. Peter, one of the things that always comes up is the whole idea of a student athlete. Is it a student who's also an athlete, or are they athletes who kind of pretend to be students?
Good question. There's a big delineation between high school and college. I think a lot of folks out there, that know the sports world would know that in college, Division I, maybe a little Division II, it's athlete first, student second. Here in Massachusetts, the MIAA, and certainly at Milford, you won't catch myself or Mrs. Banach or Dr. McIntyre, Dr. Tremblay, anybody mentioning the word just athlete. It's always prefaced or predicated with student athlete. Because, in our world, the heavy emphasis is on student, and it should be. It's a 1A, 1B. Of course, our athletes work hard. They work hard in the afternoons. Some of them work out in the morning, 6 days a week, some of them 7 days a week. But for us, the student part of it is the most important piece of the puzzle. We know that if they don't handle their academics, they can't play sports. They can't be involved with athletics. We have some eligibility, pretty strict eligibility rules right now. And we know that less than 3% of student athletes play college sports, less than 1% of college athletes move on to the... So the reality is that we want our kids working on their academics to get them set up for the next phase of their life, whatever that might be.
The reality is, out of the 260 kids that graduate Milford High, as you say, 20 or 30 will go on to a Division I, and maybe one every 3 or 4 years will make it a living.
That's pretty much about as right as you nail on the head with the statistics and averages. That's what we're talking about.
So now how do you, because at the end of the day, it's you and Kevin, it's you and Dr. McIntyre that are going to set the tone. What do you do? I mean, I'm a student, I want to be an athlete. There are rules I have to live with that are state mandated or MIAA mandated.
Yes.
But
ours are actually stricter, more strict than
then there's
the
Milford rules.
Yes, yep, for sure.
And we always joke that when we were at town meeting talking about some of the kids who were brought in from Texas, I mean, I got up and I said, frankly, Charlotte,
Yeah.
yes, I really don't need somebody from Beacon Hill or Washington telling Milfordians how to take care of their kids.
Right.
We've always taken care of our kids, not because we have to.
Because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. They're our
right.
kids. So tell me, what are the guidelines, what are the rules that if I want to be an athlete for you, because at the end of the day, you're the CEO
I'm the
of
guy that checks everything. It all comes to me, Mrs. Banach and myself, and Dr. McIntyre is heavily involved.
Sure, but Kerry's great, Kevin's great, but when we think of athletics, good and bad.
I'm your guy.
Sorry, Peter. I'm not looking at Kerry.
Nope, gotcha. I gotcha. Nope, and I embraced that when I applied for the job. I mean, I couldn't have worked harder to get the job and be here. I mean, like I said, I grew up next door in a town that got beat up a lot by Milford. So I was happy. I lived next door, in Blackstone, and when I saw the job, I couldn't have worked any harder to get here. I'm thrilled that I was hired. I consider myself very fortunate and lucky to be here, and I want to be that next athletic director who has, I'm looking at 15, 16, 17 years, maybe 20. If I love what I'm doing, I want to be here for a long time, and I want us to excel. I want us to work hard.
Here I am. I'm an 8th grader.
Coming in, yep,
I'm coming
matriculating.
I have my son, my daughter with me, and she asks you, what do I have to do to be one of your athletes? What would you say?
Right off the bat, you have to, and I'll jump a little bit with the academics and work with the physical, the medical world as well. You have to have a physical within the last 13 months that tells us that your primary care physician has checked you out physically, and that your body is prepared.
There's no indications that preclude you or put you at a high risk.
Exactly.
Of getting hurt.
Yep, exactly. We need to know that you're physically capable of the physical mandates and stress of being on whatever team. Depends on, you have golf all the way up to football, no contact to, heavy, severe contact. And then we need to check each and every student athlete's report card. And you basically have to pass a certain workload. You've got to be within a range. Really what we do is if you have failed one or more classes, we're taking a look at where you are. We need to know where you are. If you don't have a certain percentage of passing grades, then you just can't be eligible. And as I said, the MIA allows for a failing grade would be 60%. We're at 65, so if you don't get a 65 or above, automatically that grade just falls off the charts and you can't be eligible. So it's pretty strict. We have heavy expectations for our kids to perform in the classroom before they get an opportunity to perform, you name it, on the ice, on the fields, on the track, wherever.
I got to take a physical.
Yeah.
Are there different physicals for, say, a golfer than a linebacker?
Great question. No. Because basically, we know that sports are strenuous. Walking 9 holes, walking 18 holes is pretty, for a guy my age, it's pretty strenuous. But basically what it is that we need to know that you've spent 45 to 60 minutes with your primary care physician. They've checked you out. They've checked, bone structure, muscle structure. They know your past history. They know your capabilities. They know your limitations. They'll outline those, and then we need a stamp of approval.
You get a stamp as an athlete.
Yep.
Physician says you're good to go.
Yes.
Now you sign up for courses, and there's no special courses either, right?
Absolutely not. Nope. You have got to take. That's a great question. You've got to take exactly what every other student. There are no.
No basket weaving 101?
We were joking before that there's no basket weaving 101. We've got. I'll give you an example. This week we have AP physics exams. Well, not even physics. We had AP exams all week long. I will tell you, and I'm very proud of this. We had to move some of our games. We typically start at 3:30, 3:45. We had to move some of our games to 4:30 because we had kids, student athletes, taking advanced placement exams, and the teams we were playing didn't have anybody. So that was a very cool.
Again, there's those tells.
Yes.
The fact that they are student athletes, and if something has to move, your AP exams aren't going to move.
Absolutely, and that's a great indicator too. No, I mean, these are state mandated. You are told that you're going to take the physics exam on May 4th, and it's going to be between 12 and 4 p.m.
Right.
That's it. So Mrs. Banach, the principal, Matt Bayonne, the guidance director, they have no wiggle room. Those exams are there. Now, sports are important. I know some people would like to argue that. They're a big part of the high school experience.
Sure.
Whether you're a spectator, whether you're a participant, however that works. But we don't move for the tells. We don't move for an MTEL. You name it. We don't get to move for those, any of the MCAS exams.
And you shouldn't, because again, back to student athlete.
That's real life. When I tell the kids at Milford, what I tell my kids at home, your first and primary job is to get good grades. Because your first job is most likely going to be predicated on what you did from K to 12, but most likely 9 through 12. That's either going to set you up for the college that you want to be in, maybe the military choice where you want to, sort of acclimate into, or the first job, depending on what you're going to do. Those 3 opportunities.
And again, when you think about you graduated 260 kids, 30 of them maybe will get an opportunity through a scholarship of something. So that leaves 230 that are relying solely on their academic.
Right here. What they know and what they're capable of doing, with that, cognitive information. It's a competitive world. That's one of the things we teach, at least with our athletes in Milford right now, is, we're not afraid. Milford has never been afraid to compete. And, I'm just the guy recently who's just been loud and proud about it. It is a competitive world. When I pulled into the parking lot, I'm competing for the closest parking space. I competed for a job, for this athletic director job. We all compete. So they have to work hard in the classroom before they can work hard in the afternoons.
And when I think about it, realistically, you hear too much about how many schools. I mean, a few years ago, I was absolutely appalled when I heard Secretary of Education, where they came out and said they ought to set a goal of graduating 18% of our college seniors. I mean, that made me absolutely furious because I thought about it. I said, that means...
That's atrocious.
That, no, they wanted a goal of 33% because only 18% were graduating. And you sit there and say, well, wait a minute. If less than, like the NBA takes 24 kids a year, you say the vast majority of kids are then going out into the real world with no marketable skill.
Should be 100%. Should be
You
the
know,
same expectations.
and I can see where, you lose a couple here or there, so it's in the 90s, but I don't buy, this idea that they're athletes and they happen to take some academics.
I agree with you, because the reality is, if you set the bar that low, let's say we leave it at 33%, okay, so you get to 30, and I agree with you. I feel like we should set the bar at 100%, and if we get to 95, 96, 97, as you said, life happens. Some kids maybe might not be able to finish family issues.
Right.
There's always going to be a reason why.
One or two here, right.
Yeah, for sure. But that's not an expectation that we should be pushing.
At Milford, let's say Milford High, we have a heavier requirement.
Yes. It's
for
more strict.
academics.
Yep.
Now, my understanding is that these kids, since they are high visibility,
Yes.
they also have a heavier burden on behavior.
Absolutely, without a doubt. If you don't mind, I'll explain.
Please.
So when I was fortunate enough to be named the athletic director, one of the things that I devised was I wanted this core, this nucleus of expectations. So previous AD, Nick Zakili, worked with him. He helped me. We just made a bunch of banners and really just put them all around the school. I meet with each team. I meet with the kids at the beginning of every season. We talk to the parents. We talk to the student athletes. We talk to brothers and sisters. We talk to grandma. Whoever comes to that meeting. It's mandatory to be at the meeting, so we say, bring the whole family. We have 3 expectations that are critical to everything we do. We call them the championship expectations. Number 1 is relentless pursuit of excellence. That's not just athletics. That has to do with how you pursue your academics during the day. It's your behavior during school. It's your behavior in and out of the classroom. And I'll talk a little bit about, red, white, and black and how we feel about that. Secondly, our second heavy expectation is what we call championship sportsmanship, regardless of what the score is. People should not be able to tell the score by watching how Milford is playing. We can't control the other teams that we're playing, but win, lose, or draw, we expect our Milford student athletes to conduct themselves accordingly, and that's with honor, that's with respect, and just the highest of integrity. The third, which kind of wraps it all together, is what we call, basically, it comes down to Scarlet Hawk 24/7, 365. And what I really, and the kids have embraced this, the coaches have embraced this, and I want to point out, this is not anything new at Milford. What I've done is I've just given it a new way to explain it. I've summarized it, and I've given it a way for me to reach.
You've made it more visible, too.
Thank you. That's what we're doing. It's a higher visibility, and it's easy for me to point to rule 1, 2, or 3. Are you doing one of these? So the third one is Scarlet Hawk 24/7, 365, and I will talk about my days in high school and my days competing as a collegiate athlete for Bridgewater State College at the time. Now it's university. But I will say to them, I'm always going to be a representative of my high school, graduate, Hall of Fame, all those great things that I was lucky enough. I'm always going to be a Bridgewater State Bear. But now, no matter where I go, whether I'm wearing red and white, a little bit of black infused there, I don't need this shirt. Similar to Spider-Man or Superman. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. I'm still Peter Boucher, the director of athletics for Milford High School, and that means something. I could be having breakfast on a Saturday morning in, you name it, anywhere in Massachusetts, anywhere in New England. I still have to conduct myself accordingly so that people know when they look at that guy, there's a Milford Scarlet Hawk. And maybe they don't know that, but they're going to look at that guy and say, that's a pretty respectful guy.
Well, the life lesson you're teaching, when you think about it, is how many times you're faced with, in business, in life, you're faced with rectums, or rectums have a purpose, hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
You're faced with dealing with a hemorrhoid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the temptation is to
I never
lower...
thought of it like that, but I like that. That's great. I'm going to borrow that.
Your temptation is to lower and vent.
Yes.
But you sit there and say, wait a second, no.
Nope.
I'm not going to lower my standards. And you know it more as a parent when you have your kids around.
Yes, sir. Yep. Got 2 of my own, yes.
Just like you have 1,100 kids that watch how you behave. Because if you don't treat your opponents, and let's face it, on the field,
absolutely,
they're your opponents. But when you come off the field, They're athletes, they're
They're
students,
people.
they're people.
Yeah.
You should treat them with respect, just like you expect them to treat you with respect.
Absolutely. I mean, even to pare it down to, like you said, take a basketball game. We have 10 or 12 boys or girls on the varsity. We have 500 people in the gym on a Friday night. And how they behave, whether they have the uniform on or not, matters. It
Sure.
matters. It tells a tale. It's your role model, whether you like it or not.
Well, when we go
No?
to different places, if you see the fans of the team, you know, I mean, like you think of the Philadelphia Eagles, and they got
Yes.
a jail in their football stadium. Boy, that says
It's not a
something
good place
to
to
me.
be.
It says something to me about
Expectations.
Philadelphia, the town. You know, how could you take pride in
Right.
hoodlums?
Yeah, it's not a good place to be.
You know, and it's not everybody, but unfortunately, the vast majority, if you go to a Milford High game, home or away, and kids are behaving in less than an optimal way, you're going to make a judgment about
For
the
sure.
whole town,
Absolutely.
especially the athletes.
And that's a really good point because a lot of schools are judged by their athletic program. Like it, lump it, or leave it. I understand it. I'm not saying I agree with it, but if a school anywhere in, coast to coast, let's go from here to California, if a school has a good athletic program or a couple of winning, your football is winning, maybe baseball, basketball, softball, the higher profile sports, typically there's just there's an undertow of understanding. It's a good school.
Yeah.
And that's
And a good school is because it's got good people.
right.
You know, and you look and you say, okay, you've got the athletics, you've got the academics, and you've got the personal, that triangle. There has to be a balance.
For sure.
But the same way, you've got a town where we have to balance, all the facets of a town. And so teaching the kids that there are trade-offs, that yes, if you want extra benefits, and let's face it, being an athlete is not an entitlement, it's
A privilege.
a privilege.
Right. Agreed.
So you have to maintain your personal appearances. Misbehaving in public is probably not going to be something condoned or encouraged.
No, not even close.
And you hear,
Take that
well,
very
it's not
seriously.
fair that if a non-athlete does something, they get penalized, but not as heavy as an athlete.
True.
True.
There's
End of
no ifs,
story.
ands, or yeah, that's
True.
it. That's right.
And guess what? When you go to a company and you become part of senior management, you're going to learn that things that an entry-level intern can get away with,
Yep.
you can't.
You can't. It's just the way.
Because there's privileges that come with the position, and the visibility puts you on stage 24/7.
hierarchy of expectations.
But it's the same thing with our athletes.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be a star pitcher, a star quarterback, a star, goalie for the girls' soccer team, whatever, you're much more visible.
Absolutely. People know your name. You're in newspapers. You're on social media.
So
they're rock stars to the
we
younger
want
generation.
our kids to have that privilege, that benefit, but the responsibility comes is, hey, when you're on stage, you got to behave.
Absolutely.
And
And you're
it's-
on stage a lot, right? Whether you're wearing the uniform or not. That's what we're really trying to continue to encourage with our student athletes and our coaches and our entire staff, that really what it happens is you're on stage all the time. You walk outside to get the mail, you're on stage because you're either a student athlete or you're a coach of that program or you're me who's administrating the entire program. It is what it is. And rather than run from that, we're saying we embrace that. Well, that's fine. We're okay with that.
Yeah, and it's not gender driven. I mean,
No,
when
no.
you look at the publicity that our girls softball teams get,
Absolutely.
they got more than all the
rightfully
boys
so.
put together.
Absolutely.
And they should, because they earned it.
Absolutely. They
You
put
know?
that, they've worked hard, to deserve that type of recognition because of the way they conduct themselves in the classroom, on the field, and then factor in all the other 14, 15
And then
hours
think
of
about
the day.
what the girls for a number of years did is they showed the town that they were student athletes because they performed on the field and we never heard about negative things.
Absolutely.
You weren't hearing about bad parties, bad this, bad that.
Yep.
And the town ponied up money for a brand new softball field. And the town ponied up money for a brand new football, soccer, lacrosse.
The turf complex,
turf.
yeah, for sure, yeah.
You know, and for the last 2 years, we've been tucking away a couple $100,000 a year so that when we get up to a point, we can turf a new field.
Yes, yeah, which I'm very excited about, I have to say. But you know what? What I would say about, and that's one of the reasons, I'll be honest, that I pursued this job. I've known since I was about 13, you know, when I really started to just understand athletics and be an athlete, that this town in general has a relentless pursuit of excellence too. And what I knew about and what I've come to sort of just recognize by working here is that if we're going to do anything, and this is my personality, it's all or nothing. We're either going to do it right or we're not going to do it. I can't do anything 85%. And I feel like this is the town that I wanted to work for and be in, because just what you talked about, we recognized we had a need for a better field or a professional grade field for a professional organization, and that's our softball team. But then for the town and the kids, the track and the turf, everybody, that place is used all the time.
It's
earned
great,
it,
though.
Yes,
You've earned it. They've earned it, because if all we heard about was bad behavior from the Zubobnik team,
yes,
and then it comes to the FinCom, and you say, I want to buy a new Zubobnik field.
yes. What's going to happen?
You mean for the hoodlums that keep embarrassing us on the paper?
Yes.
So, part of it, the kids have earned, because they are staying with the academics, because they're eligible for the team. They're doing well athletically, and they're kids we're proud of.
Exactly.
So when you put
it all
those
together,
you sit there and say, well, of course we want to support
for sure
them.
But I have to be honest, 25 years in teacher, principal, director of athletics, wellness director, all those things. I have been in 3 organizations in 25 years of doing this, and I will tell you that not every community supports the way Milford does. And I'm not saying that because I'm not saying that just because I'm here. I taught at the school I graduated from for 12 years, was very successful as a coach. But I will still say, without naming names, that in those other organizations that I worked for, they might talk that they supported certain things. But to me, there's 2 ways to support. That's people power and that's finances.
Right.
You're going to get behind things in one of 2 ways, or both. And Milford does both. If basically the way I feel, having been here 2 years, is that if we can substantiate that we need something, and it's good for our kids, and it's good for our town in general, Milford's going to find a way to get it done.
See, that goes all the way down to the staff, because the teachers years ago, I'll never forget when we had those years where the budgets got really bad.
Sure. Yep. Every town would have that every once in a while.
Towns around us, one town, their teachers voted to delay their raise for a year. And he sat there and said, how does that help you?
Right.
If I can't make my mortgage payment now, how
Cost of living.
Yeah.
Right.
In a year, I got to do double.
Yeah.
Our teachers gave up their raise. And I mean, you don't hear that in a union environment. That
Commitment to excellence, right?
it was
That's
a
really what that
commitment
comes down to.
And it was clear. Okay, we're going to give up our raise, but you can't shoot our teachers or use the money somewhere else. It's like, well, that's only fair.
Yeah, just be transparent about it. Let's
But now,
make sure we're
you
moving
turn
forward.
around and you say, it's half a dozen years later, old people like me still remember that our teachers, when we needed them,
Yep.
gave up their raise.
Where else do you hear that?
You don't.
I don't know if I could quote, and again, I'm a guy that's been around Massachusetts education for a long time. I don't have a story like the one you just told, because most towns, most staffs wouldn't do that. But there is something special here. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad they chose
So
me.
we're going to roll into the fall.
Let's do it.
Team number 1.
Everybody's talking football,
Everybody's
right? How
talking
can you
football.
not? Milford, New England, Massachusetts, sure.
Tell us about the football team.
So the back-to-back seasons that I've seen have been 7-4, 7-4. I think one of the reasons that Milford kind of looked at me as the new AD is that I grew up in this league. I competed in this league, again, go back to 13, which seems like 1,000 years ago. I competed in this league, was lucky enough to be a successful athlete. Then I came back 4 years later, coached in this league for 12 years.
What league are we in football?
Hockomock League. I mean, and my coined phrase, my catchphrase, because again, I've competed, I've coached, I've administrated. This is the NFL of high school sports. Pick a sport, and if you can get top 3 in this league, you're probably going to win your division, and you have a chance to win the entire state. Doesn't matter what that sport is. And other leagues can say, well, we've got great football. Yeah, so do we. We'll play anytime. Where do you want to meet? We've got great football. We've got great gymnastics. We've got great baseball, cross. Yeah, we got it all. Welcome to the Hockomock League. That's really what it comes down to.
So who's in the Hockomock League?
Oh boy, you're testing me now. So and we have a couple. We basically Taunton and Milford are new. We're the sort of the newbies. Attleboro came in a couple of years before we did. So there's those 3 schools right there, and then you would have King Philip, Franklin, Foxborough, Sharon, Mansfield, North Attleboro.
Pretty strong towns.
Stoughton. Hello. I mean, yeah. It really is like the NFL. Any given Sunday, it doesn't matter if you're playing Monday, Tuesday. Every team is a difficult team in this league. It really is.
So how many kids are in the football team?
I think we had 77 last year.
Holy moly!
Yeah, we'd like to be bigger. I'll be honest. We'd like to get to 100. We're trying.
100
high expectations,
kids?
my man. Yeah, sure, Al. We're always pushing. It's never good enough for me, and I think it's never good enough for Milford either. But yeah, we had 75 to 77. I want to quote, and we've graduated 18 seniors, so we had a small junior class. We really have created a great connection with the help of a lot of our Milford youth football guys. Coach Pearl, Coach Hazard. Nancy Angelini at the middle school has open arms. How do we connect? I'm all about building bridges. Let's make connections. Let's be one big organization. So, yeah, we'd like to be in the high 70s, 80s next year. The expectations are there. You get some guys coming back that are pretty powerful. It's a tough league.
So it's about 20 kids per class is optimal.
Yes, right. We'd like 25, but we'll take 20 for sure. Yeah.
But now, the freshmen, do they actually play?
They do.
They do?
They do. So in the Hockomock League, we have a freshman team, you have a JV team, and then you have a varsity team. Typically, your varsity team would play Friday night, and then depending on schedules, your freshman team would play Saturday morning, and your JV team could either play, I'll break it down for you. So Friday night would be your varsity teams. They would go at it. Saturday morning, typically you would have your freshmen, because they're not really going to get into the game for the most part, unless you've got a couple of really strong freshmen like we did this year. 9 o'clock Saturday morning, your freshmen would play. 11:30, your JV team would play, unless you've made an agreement with the other team that you're going to play Monday with your JV team. But we played a lot of Saturdays.
I mean, I was amazed when we had one of the gals living with us, played for a team, she played for the U.S. national team, but
Nice.
for the Breakers. She came from a little place called Odessa, Texas.
Sure.
Odessa Permian from that little movie Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
I know
That
where
was
you're going
her
with
school.
this. Yeah, hello.
And it was so funny because when I first took her to a Milford High game,
Yeah.
she was looking around like, okay, where's everybody?
Well, yeah, I mean.
Because, you get, what, a couple thousand?
Yes.
And
yeah.
we felt good. We had a couple.
Yeah, we feel pretty good with that. 1,000, 12,
And when she
1,500.
explained to me that they get routinely 20,000 people, she said, oh, we get a minimum 15,000.
Texas and Florida are another world. I lived in Florida for 4 years. We had to move for family reasons and helping out a family member.
That's a different world.
Wow. And again, coming from the Hockomock League my whole life, I thought, football's not that big in Texas and Florida. And I went to the first
told me
game.
It was legit. They closed the town.
I was just going to say they shut everything down.
She
and
said
just
there's
like the movie.
no reason to have stores open because everybody's at the game.
Everybody's gone. And even if it's a home game, literally 15,000 people are in these stadiums. So
yeah, her high school played their final game in the Astrodome. I thought that was all the movies.
It's another planet.
So now, it's got to be tough. When we were kids, you had 3 sports really.
Yes.
Football, basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring.
Yes.
Now, if I'm a good athlete, I can do football, I can do soccer. Is lacrosse in the fall, or is that
Lacrosse is in the spring.
in
Yeah,
spring?
boys and girls lacrosse.
So I do have at least two, then track.
Yep, indoor track, outdoor track, we have both.
So how does an athlete decide?
Well, you know what? It's I'll give you my thoughts on that, and then there's this what I'm calling an epidemic in the country with three sport athletes because they don't really exist anymore. We've had a resurgence, I think, because myself and the coaches have put an emphasis on it. And if you don't mind, I'll give you in a minute. I'll talk about that. But basically, what happens is, you'll see a student play one particular sport, and what I would normally do is I would say, hey, what do you do in winter? You get a guy like, I don't know, Blake Hill, for example. Okay, I've never seen anybody hit people so hard as Blake Hill Jr. I've seen people bounce off him. Again, 45 years old, been watching football since I was 6. I cringe when Blake gets the ball because he's just such a powerful runner. So you look at Blake and you say, okay, big, strong kid. What do you do in winter? Well, I lift. How about wrestling or indoor track? You could wrestle, indoor track, shot put, you could still lift. So that's kind of how that would happen. You'd get some of the other coaches that are talking. Because one of the great things at Milford is that, that three-sport athlete, and this isn't just Milford, this is an epidemic, again, coast to coast, north to south, east to west. I think it's a global epidemic. You have, and I don't want to blame AAU, but that's the first acronym that comes to mind. I can remember coaching in the 90s, and AAU basketball came up, and I would have kids, if I was coaching cross country or wrestling or some of the other sports that I coach, and say, I can't play this year, I got to play AAU basketball. Wow, isn't that at 6 o'clock at night? Yeah, but the coach doesn't want me playing, I could get hurt. So what has happened is just about every other sport has sort of picked up that basketball mentality from the 90s, and now if you're a field hockey player, if you're a football player, if you're a tennis player, you got to play year round.
Well, see, that's what I was
That's what
wondering,
they're telling them. I don't believe that, but that's what they're telling
my
them.
girls, when they were playing soccer,
Sure.
now, not the ones who I inherited who lived with.
Yes,
they were the cream.
yeah, your
My
kids.
physical daughters.
Sure.
We started in August on the soccer pitch. And fall ball would go until end of October. Beginning of October, we moved indoors,
Yes.
which went till April. In March till June, we did spring soccer.
Spring soccer, right.
So you're sitting there saying, there's 10 weeks of the year, because we had 2 practices, a game, and then I always took the girls to the movies or something one night.
Sure.
So there was 4 nights a week for basically 41 weeks of the year that they were playing soccer.
Right.
You sit there and say,
That's a lot of soccer. And I think, one of the challenges in our athletic trainer, who's phenomenal, he's the best. I was a collegiate athletic director, and I had a staff. This Jonathan Rasko is better than all of them.
Wow.
No negativity to those folks down in Florida. But he's just phenomenal. So we talk about this a lot, and we crunch a lot of data. And there are so many sport-specific injuries. Think of baseball, Tommy John. There's 14, 15, 16-year-old kids getting Tommy John surgery. Why? Not because they're throwing curveballs at 13. Yes, that's negative, but they're pitching year-round. They're playing year-round. You're getting ACL tears with people who are playing soccer year-round. Listen, I was a soccer player. I was a baseball player. I did everything up until high school when I realized what I was really proficient and good at. But what we want, and what the national trending data is saying, and take Urban Meyer, who's my big proponent, and I use a lot of his data. 2 years ago, wins the national championship, and he tweets out he had 51 Division I full scholarship athletes. 47 of them, 47 of 51 were dual or tri-sport athletes, and he came out on Twitter and said, I want my football players playing other sports. Agility, dexterity, mental toughness, different types of strength. There's all kinds of strength when you get down to it. And he said, I don't want my football players playing football year round. I want basketball players. I want high jumpers. I want long jump. I want wrestlers. It teaches them different toughness, different tenacity, different commitment to excellence that we've talked about. So what we've done in the past 2 years is we're trying to move away. And again, if you're a soccer player, play summer soccer, play spring soccer, but do something for Milford in the winter, because it's going to make you a better person, it's going to make you a better player, It's going to make you a more well-rounded individual altogether. And as a collegiate athlete, collegiate athletic director, one of the studies we did at the college that I was at, Manatee Community College, was that we took a look at what happens to athletes when they're not playing a sport for their high school. And we noticed a severe dip in their academics.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? And then we started to study, Harvard then did, and Brown. I'm not going to say we did it first, but it was all going on at the same time. And what we noticed was, with all of the studies, was that athletics would help segment your time. You go to school, you're in a sport from 2:30 to 5, 2:30 to 6, go home and have dinner with the family. Now it's time to do your homework.
Time and territory management, we used to call it,
is
really
critical.
does set into athletes.
Absolutely.
Because they can't afford to goof off for 2
No.
hours a
Nope.
day, or, and it's always the question, are we letting them be kids? Because, the worrisome part,
That's a good point.
and I fell into it, was we love being with our kids.
Right.
I mean, the greatest thing about coaching soccer was that I was
Your
with
kids
my
are on the
daughters
team, right? Yeah.
all the time.
And that's a great point.
But you sat there and said, we never had all these organized sports. We got home, you grabbed the bat, we lived in the Heights, you went to the picnic grounds and you
Yes.
played.
And you organized on your own.
It
doesn't happen
now.
anymore
All of
either.
a sudden,
Yeah.
if it's not with referees, with this, with. But now, if
It's
I
hard.
am,
It's difficult.
I'm a student athlete. I roll into the fall. I can play football. I can play soccer. I can run track. How do I decide? I can only do one in the fall.
No, and that's a good point. You're right. You can do whatever you want after hours. The MIA has sort of backed off on, the two-sport rule. Not at your high school. When I was in high school, it was, let's say, Pete Boucher running cross country in the fall. Went from soccer to, because I was better at it, and I was pretty sure I could get a scholarship and all that good stuff, or thought I could. At that time, I felt like I was close. Basically, what the MIA said, you can only play one sport for your high school each season. As long as you go to your high school practice, you can go do something later. So if you want to play, fall ball for, baseball, you could play football, and then if you want 2-3 nights a week, go play baseball, throw around, whatever, be on a travel team, you can do that. It's a good question, though. For me as the athletic director, I feel my role is, I'm not really trying to tell you what sport I want you to play. I just want you playing a sport.
Play something.
Just play something. Participate, So many of our teams that are doing well are because you have your 3 or 4 stars, but then you have this second level of 6, 7 kids who are stars in another sport. And they come out and they're just good genetic DNA athletes. They've got the mental toughness that we're looking for, the commitment to excellence, and they just make something of themselves in that sport. And that's what we want, that's what we need. So it really, if a kid comes to me, and it's certainly happened, hey, coach, I'm thinking about doing lacrosse or track. Now, of course, I did track and field in high school and college, but I got to tell you, if I think a kid should play lacrosse, the first thing I'm going to say is, you know what, I'm not sure if you have what you need for a shot put or the raw speed to be a sprinter 100, 200, but you do have the stick. You played field hockey.
Right.
It's a natural transition from field hockey to lacrosse. Mostly what I ask them is, what do you want to do? What does your heart tell you? If I said to you right now, we're in a room, and I'm going to kick open that door, and you want to run to track, what do you really want to do?
Right.
And what do you want?
What do you have a passion
Tell me what you
for?
want to do, and then I'll tell you it's the right sport. That's all. That's really how we do it. So, sometimes our PE teachers will encourage them, which is a great place to be. They see them,
Well, but they can see their raw skills.
Yes, so they're encouraging them to come out for a sport, and then, like I said, a lot of times I will see a kid who's playing a sport in the fall and find out they're not doing anything else, winter or spring, and I might say, hey, listen, we'd love to have you play tennis, or we'd love to have you jump on the track team.
Just do something.
Yeah, just do something to help us out, and in turn, it's going to help you out,
Well, I would think if you're a fall athlete, a primary fall athlete, it's got to be easier to keep in shape if you're doing something in the winter.
Well, you know what? Perfect example. It segments your time. You're forced 6 days a week to be at a 1 hour, 2 hour workout. Absolutely, And I would jump on it. We've talked a lot about academics. Colleges have really transitioned for me in the late 80s, looking to get into college, to 21st century. They want the well-rounded student.
Right.
They want everything. They don't want a one sport athlete anymore. They really don't. They want someone who's in the art club. They want someone who's playing field hockey,
Well,
then
we've
does
seen
basketball.
that as we interview kids going into college, where if everything's same, and my claim to fame is I was a badminton star only or a football star
Yes.
only, and you, with the same other, have 2 or 3 sports or been involved in other
The
activities,
multi-person is going to get that slot.
you're going to get the slot.
Absolutely. 99% of the time. I mean, that's where it's going. So I think, I feel comfortable and I feel pretty good that word has kind of got back out at Milford. We have a new award this year. It's called the Iron Hawk Award. I'm actually giving that away. The kids don't know that yet. So we'll see how many kids watch your show, right, when they bug me in a couple days.
Iron Hawk?
Yes. So what that is it's a play on words with the Iron Man and the Iron Woman triathlete, multi. So if you are a 3-sport athlete in the spring when you have your banquet, either I will show up depending on what my schedule is, or that coach, freshman, could be freshman, JV, or varsity, doesn't matter, because if you played 3 sports, 3 seasons, you'll find yourself in that crowd of getting a certificate and
Cool.
just kids like that. We recognize
Now
kids.
we hear a lot
wanna do that.
about as kids are going off and they're trying to market themselves. I'm a senior or a junior, whatever. I want to market myself, my skills, whatever sport. Some schools help with videos, help with promotions. Does Milford High do anything like
Yes, great question. So we thanks to our booster president Joe Arcudi and his super dedicated crew. Again, have not seen a crew like that anywhere I've been. These guys work really hard. We've contracted a technology company called Huddle, HUDDL. Every sport that wants to, out of our 27 sports, any sport that wants to, they have bought such a high volume of video time, and I won't bore everybody out there, but any one of our 27 sports that wants to have an account can simply contact President Joe Arcudi, sign up, and then we tape the games. Anybody who wants to, we either have a parent or a student athlete.
So you're going to do a promo tape to help sell them?
Yeah, so basically what will happen is, to cut to the chase, is we tape as many games as we can because we use that. That's incredible data. Here's where Milford was, here's where you should have been, or look where they, you can sort of critique, I know you know what I'm talking about, but for the folks out there, we're critiquing ourselves, we're critiquing our opponents, we're getting ready for the next game, but we can also basically pare down. Here's Al Correa, he's on the field, and basically we can pull tape for you, put together a 3 to 5 minute video, boom. We can email that out along with whatever resume we want to, you tell us what schools you wanted to go to, and the head coach will help you send that to those coaches.
I was always amazed when some of the girls that lived with us, Kerry used to tell me that every practice when she was at North Carolina, they got ranked on all the, so it's like, she said, I'd get pulled aside and said, you were 6th in headers. You've dropped to 7th.
Yeah.
We need to work on that. And it was amazing.
It's
I said,
incredible
every
information.
drill.
Yeah.
But
Because they're taping everything. They go down, they break it down.
It was like a bioinformatics group going through this.
For sure.
But then you sit there and say, okay, so her coach, Anson Durans, won 16 national championships in soccer out of 20.
Wow.
And you sit there and say, okay, I understand
Yeah,
why.
this guy, he knows what he's doing.
Because every little detail, to a lesser degree, but you're doing the same thing, looking at the tape saying,
Similar, yes,
hey, by
yeah.
the way, do you realize you're dropping your shoulder or you're doing this?
Yep. I mean, and it's got to that point where the high-power schools are doing that. You play in North Attleboro in football, they're doing the same thing. So in order for us to be competitive and keep that high level of athletic performance, you almost have to do this. And if you're not, you're going to get caught napping because the other teams are going to do that.
And again, yes, I want victory at the center of the universe here in Milford.
Sure.
But more importantly, if they're doing tapes and we're sending Johnny from Milford to compete with Jackie from North Attleboro for that spot at Holy Cross, if he's got the tapes and all the data,
and we don't, that's a problem.
It's bad enough that we're not taking advantage of it to get an extra win. But the real win, as you said, is the student part.
Yes, getting into the college
of choice.
If
they can get into the college they want to,
yes,
then it just sounds like a better deal.
It's critical right now. And again, it coincides with the level of expectation that this community has and expects. And, again, Milford has found a way via the boosters to put our kids in that our teams in that position to be able to critique themselves and their opponents, and also critique themselves and showcase themselves in a manner. Let's be honest. There's some kids who either don't want to play in college, or 3 to 5% of high school kids are going to play Division I, Division II, Division III. But what's great for us is for the kids that want the opportunity, we now can put them on a springboard and say, yeah, we're behind you, we'll help you. What do you need? Where do you want to go? Tell us what you need, and we're going to do it.
I don't want to be cold about it, but I'm paying you with my tax dollars to make opportunities available to my children.
Agreed.
I'm not saying they've got to take advantage of them.
Yep, but it's there.
But if you gave my kids, and you sit there and say it's 260 of our kids, if you gave them the opportunity to decide whether they want to, because they've been offered the ability, you've done your job.
And that's how we feel.
And if you bring me some wins along the way, I'll feel even better, and I'll buy coffee. But
I'm with you.
The wins.
We'd like the wins too.
Yeah, I was going to say the wins to me are nice.
It's important to us.
Getting the kids into the schools they want,
for sure,
to me is the right goal.
Yeah, because that's 95% of the population, as high as 97 of our student athletes.
If I'm an 8th grader and I don't know, I mean, obviously, if I've been playing Pop Warner or whatever they call it now, and
it's still Pop Warner, yes,
it's still Pop Warner. If I've been playing organized baseball, I mean, the coaches will know because they're going to go down and sniff out the talent,
for sure.
But there may be kids who just aren't sure. I'm going to the high school. I think I want to play a sport. Do I go to you?
Great question.
Where do I start?
You either did your homework or you're really pressing me tonight. So here's what we did. So one of the things that I worked with Mrs. Banak on, our principal, was that we're talking about bridges, right? We're talking about community. We're talking about cohesion. One of the things that I wanted to increase was that bridge to the middle school. So what we did this year is and a lot of work, but it's worth it. I don't care about the hours that we put in. I'm more concerned about the end product, and the end product is the kids getting what they need to go where they want to go. I know that sounds simple, but that's how we really look at it. So what I kind of recognized when I came on board was that we want to strengthen our connection with the middle school and K to 12, but it's a backwards design.
Sure.
Okay, we're at the high school, we're going to move into the middle school, then we're going to move into the elementary schools, and again just create Team Milford. That's how we're looking at it. So what we did is we created sort of this multi-event situation. We went and visited the 8th grade at Middle School East. Took up an entire morning. Mrs. Banak spoke, I spoke. We had a video, showed them a lot of our sports, a lot of our academics, a lot of our music. It was multi-dimensional. It wasn't just athletics. We want the 7th and 8th graders to know what it is that we have to offer at Milford High School. And we hope it's a good match, and we think it is for just about anybody out there. So we visited them. And then we brought them to us a couple of weeks later, tour the high school. Take a look at our pool. Take a look at our auditorium. Take a look at our music. Take a look at our science labs. Whatever it is that we want you to see it. And then what I felt was the crowning achievement of this situation is we hosted a showcase evening at the high school where we had all 27 of our head coaches with their captains in a room, in the cafeteria. We also had every one of our clubs, which is like 29 or 30 of our academic, recreational clubs, and anybody else who wanted a table to kind of hang out that evening. We put the word out. Mrs. Angelini put the word out. Dr. Tremblay, Dr. McIntyre at Middle School East, and Stacy Middle School. Mrs. Banak spoke quickly. I spoke quickly. We didn't know if we were going to get 5 people. We didn't know if we were going to get 50. We had no clue. But what we wanted to say was, we're proud of what we do. All of the coaches were in their uniforms, their staff shirts. Our baseball players were in the football players, our girls softball players all had presentations ready to go. If we didn't have 200 people that night, we didn't have 2.
See, that's wonderful because
it was awesome.
As a parent, way back when, I mean, obviously my girls were in soccer, but we decided you should try something else.
Yes, love it.
Put Alexis into basketball. 3 games into the season, we realized this isn't going to work.
Brutal honesty,
would last
right?
about 3 minutes on the court.
Yep.
Because the girls would come up, they'd go up in the air.
Yep.
Lexi would drop, throw the hip check, and splatter 'em.
See ya. Yep.
And you try and explain to her that basketball is not a contact sport.
Yes.
And her explanation was very simple. If they don't want to get hit, tell them not to jump in my face.
Don't come near me. Don't come in my bubble.
They keep running over and jumping up in my face.
Yeah.
They're going to get hit.
Yeah.
And we just sat
Don't
there
come
and
into
said,
this house.
But it's not a contact sport. And you heard, Dad, soccer isn't either, but I can hip check them.
Absolutely, yeah,
And it's like, oh, God. So, you learn.
Absolutely.
That,
and that's
okay,
a good life lesson,
basketball
though, right?
was not her thing. Let's go do something
And that's
else.
okay, though.
But that was the point. It's like, if basketball was your thing, then you should follow your passion.
I agree with you. I'll give you, I jokingly will say Air Jordan. We all know Michael Jordan. Well, I thought I was Balloon Boucher up until the 8th grade, right? Michael Jordan got cut in the 8th grade, whatever. How the story goes. Well, guess what? So did this guy. I loved basketball and soccer. I was, pretty good at soccer. Loved it until the 8th grade. PE teacher pulled me, did the tryouts after school and said, Pete, go find something else to do. I went, whoa! And then, of course, soccer, wrestling, track, all those things opened up. But it was a good life lesson for someone to say to me, this isn't really for you right now. You got to learn to bounce back. Resiliency, right? But no, I'm with you. It's a learning
now,
lesson.
if we start, so for all the 8th grade parents out there, fall's coming.
Yes.
Football, track and field.
Well, you have cross country. Yep.
Cross country.
Yep. Field hockey. Boys and girls soccer. We have girls volleyball, and then we have golf.
Okay. Girls volleyball.
Girls volleyball, because boys is in
spring.
Boys in the spring. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's how Massachusetts does it. Other states do it differently, but that's really what Massachusetts has chosen to do.
Both boys and girls have at least 2 or 3 choices for the fall.
Yes. Yep. We have 27 sports. We have 9 sports a season. So you're looking at a split of 4 one way, 5 the other. I don't think we're as high as 6-3, 6 for the girls.
Right.
There are more opportunities for the gals in the fall. But then, you come to the winter, and then the boys have ice hockey and wrestling, which Title IX says the girls can play. And we do have girls that wrestle. And once in a while, we do get girls that will play ice hockey. So it's there. The opportunities are there. But, yeah, we have 9 each season. And if you count unified sports, we just added unified basketball, and we have unified track in the spring. So we have
know the unified.
Yeah. You know what? Milford's very well known for our special and what we do with our unified. And I like that. We're a beacon. We're sort of pioneers in some of those things. So, but no, I think your point is, how do we get the 8th graders involved? We had those 3 really great events. They went so well. We're already planning to do the next year. What we do in the spring is we'll do a sign-up now. Our fall coaches will actually go to the middle school for a lunch period, and we'll do a sign-up. So the head coach, Jay Mastay, Jim Asum, Joe Todd, run down the line, whatever sport it is, they will go with their captains and basically, put up a presentation and say, if you're even remotely interested, put your name, your email address, your cell phone, your parents will contact them too. And as soon as you say you're not interested, you come off the list, no harm, no foul. But here's the things that we, might be available to you in the summer. There's summer fitness programming that we're doing that's open to everybody. Those are MIA regulations.
Too many things, unfortunately, if I remember. Jimmy Hoffa, who lived in the bottom of my daughter's backpack.
Oh, your kid? Yeah.
I'm sure there was everything in the world in there.
Yes, yep. Guilty as charged.
She always said it was either the dog who ate it or Jimmy Hoffa who stole it because he lived there.
Yep.
All the notices never quite made it home.
No, good point. So we also, again, it's about, multiple points of contact. So we will also send home emails through the 8th grade. I believe Mrs. Bonac has access to the 8th grade, I forget the program right now, but it's an email program. We'll also ask our 8th grade principals, who actually are Dr. McIntyre and Dr. Tremblay, to put it in their weekly newsletters in the spring, let people know. Like right now, we're actually, one of the other things we're doing, not so much for the transition to the high school, but we have a 4-year phase-in plan that I was happy to bring to Milford with the help of Mrs. Angelini, the support of Mrs. Bonac, and our Kathy Perry, finance director, assistant super. Everybody, comes together to get these programs going. We're starting to rebuild and re-offer middle school sports, because that went away. That went away in the late 80s and 90s, and it never really came back anywhere in Massachusetts. So right now, for example, we have boys and girls soccer. We added cross country this year, which had 60 kids.
Wow.
We started boys and girls track this season, simply because I'm just being transparent. Those are the easiest ones to begin.
Sure.
Cross country, track, soccer, kids come out, you can have, you don't have to cut anybody. Really reason we want to do it. I think we're up to 77 middle school track and field athletes. So, we have 6 meets for them, 3 away home meets, 3 home meets. But we're trying to just create opportunities, and our high school athletes will go back and forth and help out. So, yeah, we feel like we're in a good position with what we're offering for the middle school kids, and then showing them what we have to offer at the high school.
But if I'm a parent, I'm brand new to Milford, I didn't get all the notices, I can just call the high school and
Absolutely.
say, who's in charge of sports? And
right here.
You'll take the phone call.
My phone, I would challenge anybody. My wife will, drop by at 5 o'clock. We do swimming lessons in Milford Tuesday. And she cannot believe, as a former principal, a guy that ran a building with 550 kids, you don't get any busier than that unless you're an athletic director, right? I mean, the phone doesn't stop. I'm getting texts, literally my landline doesn't stop, the cell phone doesn't stop. Ding, 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 the emails. It's just, that's how this job works.
Well, I mean, that's the critical thing, is that I just moved to Milford, or my child is going to play a sport. I don't know what's available. So I can pick up the phone and
absolutely.
say,
yeah, give us a call.
Can you help me out?
Email me, shoot me an email. Email's sort of that preferred method of contact right now. But my hope is, I'll be honest with you, my hope is that we met your student athlete in those tours.
Right.
We went to Middle East. They came to us. Hopefully you're one of the 200, 250 that showed up that night for the showcase. Hopefully somehow we made some sort of point of contact in the spring, which we're still setting up right now. We'll go late May, early June. But above all, go to the website. You'll find our website at the high school, or just shoot me an email, and we'll find a way. Because if you want to play, we'll find a way. I might write that down. That sounded good, right? Good.
And we talk a lot about what's available here at the center of the universe. I got to tell you, the attitude, the role model, all the pieces of our athletic department are something. I mean, we can be proud of the results, because the girls softball team winning all the time is not something that we should take trivially.
No, not
but more importantly, winning with class, winning with dignity, winning in a way that the entire community can feel proud about how they behave, how they perform athletically, as well as what they achieve academically. When you put those 3 together, I'll say thank you.
Thank you.
Because you're doing a heck of a job.
I appreciate it.
To help us, not just while they're in high school, but to set them up with life lessons. So we will continue. Come August, we'll invite hopefully a couple coaches, and we'll talk about details in fall sports. But as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, now we'll add athletics, maybe we'll get up to 7. Good night, may God bless, and may tomorrow be a better day than today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home.